Howdy gamers, Old Gamer Guy here. Welcome to another Stellaris Console Edition video. It's been a while since I have been able to edit and upload a video, so hopefully everybody's doing okay out there. But here in space, it is the year 2462. The war in heaven is still going on. In the last video, we traveled through a wormhole in this system, because the sacred Ceralan traveled through it into our space, into this system, and they took some of our space. We took it back, and now I'm going to send my fleets back through the wormhole and attack enemy space on the other side. It seems like the best way to avoid the Bavi fleets, because they are quite powerful, and I am quite intimidated. So our ships are on their way to the wormhole when we get the news that we now have almost the capability of building a planet killer weapon. We have the choice of a world cracker, which sounds like it will make a planet unusable. And then we have the neutron sweep, which destroys biological material. So it sounds like using that option, the planet would be usable at some point after using the planet killer weapon. So I'm going to go with the neutron sweep. And meanwhile, our fleets have reached the wormhole.
Alert. Hostile fleet assets detected.
And they will travel through and get back to work, killing some enemies.
Hostile stationary asset engaged.
First things first, we need to capture this space station, and we will have very little trouble doing that. From here, I'm thinking we should send our fleets down this way into Bavi space. This area here is home to some privateers, space pirates, I guess. And the Bavi have left that alone, and I think I'll leave that alone too. But while we're doing that, we need to keep an eye on what's going on up here. And as we are moving along into Bavi space,
alert, spaceport engaged.
You can see that the Bavi are expanding up in the upper part of the map. So I immediately chickened out and decided to send my fleets back to Brocken Station, which is a nice choke point. And so hopefully they will make it to Brocken before the Bavi, but never mind that, because rogue drones are rampaging on Gossamer Prime. This is a common problem for me these days. But our fleets do manage to make it back to Brocken ahead of the Bavi. Meanwhile, I've noticed that the serene cannabinoids have been wiped off the map. I didn't get a notification about that, but they are gone, so that's sad. An Imari fleet started moving up into Bavi space, and I thought maybe I should send my fleets to follow them. But as it turned out, they were kind of a relatively small fleet. And they traveled into Bavi space and eventually were caught by a Bavi fleet and destroyed. So I'm glad I didn't commit my fleets to follow them. There's a Bavi fleet, 109K. Clearly outclassing the 19K Imari fleet. The Imari are doing questionable things with their fleets, I have to say. But as you will see, shortly. I am not one to judge what the AI does with its fleets. You'll see what I'm talking about. But meanwhile, the Bavi are pressing forward, and it's not long before they warp into Brocken, and we have a battle. Incredibly, between our two fleets and the firepower from our space station, we are able to win the battle. And looking back on this, I wish I had kept my fleets right here to defend this space, but instead, it was time to make a bad decision, and I decided to send my fleets into Bavi space and try to recapture some space. But in the meanwhile, we now have the capability to actually build a planet killer weapon, a Colossus. Unfortunately, my economy is so bad that I'll probably never get to build one, but it is an option now. And in the meantime, our fleets are pushing into Bavi space heroically, with high hopes, high spirits, very confident, and for a while, things go just fine. This Bavi space station has not been fortified, so it's not a very tough battle, and we think, oh, okay, this is easy. Let's push forward into this system to another relatively weak space station. Ever onward, forward. And it is yet another easy battle. So, hey, this is going so well. Let's keep on going. Here's another weak station. Let's push on forward. You can see there are some Bavi fleets in the area. Got to keep an eye on that, but never fear. We can take care of this. And we do take care of it. It's another easy battle. Our fleets are feeling quite confident now. And so here it is, the fatal mistake. I decide to push forward one more system. On the way there, I noticed the Bavi fleets closing in, and I decided to have my fleets turn around and go back to Brocken. But you guessed it, it was too late, and our fleets were intercepted by the Bavi. And you can probably guess what's about to happen.
Hostile fleet assets engaged.
We don't have our space station backing us up, and we are most definitely outclassed. Usually when my fleets are being defeated, I don't have the presence of mind to retreat. I am sitting, watching in horrified fascination as my fleets are completely destroyed. But this time I actually had the presence of mind to retreat and save at least a few of my ships. So we made an emergency jump out of the system. And so now, because of that, our fleets will be missing for a time. But they eventually show up back in Brocken, I think. But in the meantime, our deal to import exotic gases has run out, so we're going to go ahead and keep going with this deal. I decided to go with the most expensive option this time for some reason. Usually I go cheap. But once again, our fleets were missing for a while. And the Bavi were unopposed, completely unopposed. But eventually our fleets did show up back in the Brocken system. And they're of course repairing damage, and I am going to try to reinforce them as they sit here. But unfortunately, it's not long before the Bavi push forward again into the Brocken system, and there is another battle.
Planetary invasion alert. Malignant atmospheric incursion detected.
As you probably expected, our fleets and our space station did not do so well this time. They were sadly and badly defeated. But in the meantime, we have detected subspace echoes, strange signals approaching the galaxy.
Situation log adjusted.
This is ominous news, but in the meantime, our ships have just barely escaped, and one of the commanders has now gotten the cautious trait. Can't really blame him for that.
Planetary invasion alert. Surface control has been compromised.
And in more terrible news, scum and villainy has appeared on Earth. This is becoming more and more of a problem because colony management is just one of the many things about this game I'm terrible at. But in the meantime, once again, our fleets are missing for a while. But they do eventually show up again in the Gossamer system. And since I clearly cannot do anything about stopping the Bavi, I'm going to send them down here because, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, the Kelzen continue to push into our space. Eventually, I decided to stop our fleets and have them reinforce in this system so they could hold this choke point. I noticed that our edicts had expired. I had a bunch of edicts going. They last 14 and a half years. And so I'm going to reinstate a bunch of these. I have a lot of excess Unity. I'm not sure there is anything else to spend Unity on at this point, so this seems like a good use for it. I have over 1 million Unity. So I'm reinstating some edicts that reduce our ship upkeep cost and increase our mineral output and energy output, things like that. I can't afford to buy some of these others that cost some of these other resources, but I will also spend a little bit of influence for energy credits and minerals. And in the meantime, on the other side of the galaxy, the Bavi have defeated the Leviathan. I don't know whether to be sad or indifferent, but it happened. So I'm reporting it to you, my loyal viewers. But finally, the Kelzen decided to push forward into this choke point. And sadly, we were forced to battle our old ally. They were our allies for the longest time. We were in a federation with them and the Serene Cannabinoids. The cannabinoids have been wiped off the map. I guess maybe there may be a few cannabinoid citizens scattered around if they had a migration treaty with anybody. I'm not really sure. But this is very sad. I don't like this. But when the Bavi awoke and the Amari awoke, they were two fallen empires. They both awoke. They were ancient enemies. They went to war. We were asked to choose sides. We chose the Amari, partly because they were right next door to us, and partly because the Bavi are religious and we are machines. So it just made role-playing sense to me that we would take the side of the Imari archivists. So we chose the Amari. A few other species chose the Amari. A few species chose to back the Bavi. And then the remaining species in the galaxy united in a third faction and declared war on everybody. And so the Kelzen were part of that last group, and that put us at war with the Kelzen. Very sad. Very sad. But it is what it is. We will continue pushing into this space. We are now losing the war with the Bavi. Judging by the war exhaustion numbers in the lower left-hand corner of the screen, we are now losing that war. But we are winning the war with the Kelzen and the rest of their federation. I'm not even sure what's left of that. I think they may be the final empire in their federation, actually. So we win another battle with them, but my fleet is taking some damage. We're losing some ships. And so from here, I decided to go back to our previous choke point and reinforce my fleet once again. And eventually, once again, the Kelzen sent a fleet into that choke point. But it was kind of a small fleet, and kind of a silly move on their part. And I think at this point we just I have two fleets here, but one of them is only one corvette, so I decided to go ahead and merge these two fleets into one and continue reinforcing them in this system. Now we've built up to 40 something ships, but never mind that. We have a deviant signal on Earth, so conditions are getting worse on Earth. This is not a good sign. Now we have built up to around 60 corvettes. And I think it's time to go ahead and push forward into Kelzin space once again. We are helplessly watching the Bavi march into PlayStation Network space. And so we are taking out our nervous energy on the Kelzin. I don't know what they were thinking, pushing into our space when the Bavi are pushing into their space on the other side of their map. But as I've noticed, the AI does questionable things. In the meantime, our deal to import exotic gases has run out again. This time I'm going to go cheap like I normally do. And this system we already took from the Kelzin, but they do have some transports here. And they do have control of a planet here. We'll have to try to do something about that before long. I have some transports sitting in another system. But meanwhile, our fleet will move on and we will take another Kelzin starbase from them. I wish they had chosen our side, I really do, because I think the Kelzin were our first actual ally in the game, if I remember correctly. The Kelzin are also a species that I made, and I made them to be sort of the equivalent of Vulcans in the Star Trek universe. They are intelligent, they are basically peaceful, but they are kind of badasses if you piss them off. And I don't like the fact that we are now enemies, but that's just the way it is. And so we continue to push into their space.
Technological acquisition successful.
Actually, I think I made every species in the game except for the two fallen empires. And of course, the other species that have popped up and popped into existence during the game, like the High Kingdom and the Derp Covenant, who I think no longer exist either. The Derp Coalition was wiped out long ago, and I think the Derp Covenant is gone as well now. But some good news. Order has been restored on Earth. I built a couple of extra sentinel posts, and that seemed to work. But I think it's time we send our transports to take this Kelzin planet. This was our planet at one point anyway, but they took it from us. So we will land some armies there, and we will send our fleets over this way to take these two systems.
Hostile stationary asset engaged.
And we don't have much trouble doing that.
Construction complete.
We are up to almost 70 corvettes now. So let's go up here and take this. Once again, not much trouble here. So let's move them down to this choke point. In the meantime, our armies are landing on Silith Prime.
Planetary pacification protocols initiated.
Unfortunately and surprisingly, I guess I should have looked at this before I actually landed my armies, but we are outnumbered.
Construction complete.
And this battle does not go our way, sadly. So we're losing a bunch of armies. But never mind that, because the strange signals are now approaching the outer rim. They are almost upon us. I have a feeling this is not good news. I guess it must be the Prethrin Scourge, I'm guessing. And that's not good. So I guess really it's just going to come down to where they enter the galaxy. I'm hoping they will enter the galaxy directly in the middle of the Bavi. But we'll see what happens here. It's ominous. I've met them before in one of my previous series, and it did not go well. But in the meantime, we are losing this battle.
Ground invasion units have failed to achieve objectives.
Our ground invasion has failed. General Coadjutron has died. So this is sad news. He's been commanding our fleets for a long time. But our fleets, in the meantime, took that choke point, and now I'm going to send them down to this choke point. But I think this is a good spot to end the video. And as it turns out, the Scourge, or what I assume is the Scourge, will be entering the galaxy at those points. So they are uncomfortably close to me. And so that's probably not going to be good. But I think this is a good spot to end this video. And we will pick it up right here in the next video. As always, thanks for watching.